That wasn't the word that we were looking for.
Wasn't looking for fun, but that's fine. No, slow and cautious.
Well, good morning and welcome to the branch. We are glad you are with us today. If you're visiting with us for the first time, you can just scan this QR code on the next page. There it is. We would love for you to fill out information so that we can make sure that we're sharing the things that are happening here around the branch, things that I will say today too. So, and glad welcome. There's also places there that will link you to a place to share prayer requests, a place where you can give, which we'll do later on in the service as well. Today's Family Sunday, and so our kids will be in here with us. And kids, if you are listening to the message and you pick up, I finally remembered to put my candy in the front row. So if you hear something during the message that sparks your curiosity or that you can remember, come up to me after the service and I'll give you. This is little kids only, not big kids. Okay, so I'll come and I'll give you a lollipop. So. And today's theme is breakfast. So if you forgot, it's okay. Either you can run out and get something and come back, or there's some of us have brought hopefully enough to share with other people. So we'd love for you to hang with us after the service. We had our first book study meeting a couple weeks ago. We'll be meeting again in the next couple weeks on the 28th. And we've been going through the book, The Liturgy of the Ordinary. You can go to the next slide. There it is. So we'll be meeting at least 2 more times to go through that. So feel free to join us. We meet here on the last Monday of the month. There won't be, usually we do a Bible study at 9:30 on Monday, the second and fourth Mondays. We won't be having a Bible study tomorrow morning. I have the privilege of going on the senior trip. It may mean something different to me than it does to the rest of them, right? So I get a chance to go to Busch Gardens with my son in his class. So we started our fall tutoring session a few weeks back. So if you are free on Tuesday evenings from 6:30 to 7:30, we would love for you. We can always use more tutors. And in January, we're actually going to be expanding down into the Elmont area. So if you're not free now, but you might be free on Tuesdays starting in January, I'd love to share. And I've got some other tutors who would love to share about their experience as well with that. People have been asking about ways that they can help with the Hurricane Helene recovery. There's 2 organizations that Matt McGrain has been connected with in the past, 8 Days of Hope and God's Pit Crew. You can, again, scan either of these QR codes if you want more information about that. They're sending people down to Western North Carolina. Carrie and I used to live there, so we have a lot of connections too, and have been looking at some of our friends' churches to potentially connect us with that will help make sure that that where we're sending help is actually boots on the ground there in Western North Carolina. After Family Sunday today, I'm going to be running over. There's a new Chipotle opening on 301, and through our connections with Hanover County Schools, they're training up their employees, and they want to be able to distribute that food that they've prepared to those in need. And so I'm going to go get that at 2:30, be back here at the branch around 3. Would love for anyone who's available to come back, grab a box, and be able to distribute that. There's motels around, there's apartments around. Would love to even just point you in some directions. If you don't have any idea of where to go, I'd be glad to share some ideas with you. But it's an awesome opportunity that we have to be able to share food with our community. And I'm I'm going to say, because my daughter has texted me multiple times to make sure to save some Chipotle for her. Don't intentionally go out with a box and say, oh, well, we couldn't find anybody, so we're just going to go home. And hopefully that wasn't planting an idea in your brain. But also, the branch is on social media in all these different logos. So would love for you to follow us there, trying to get more intentional about our space there. And so if you miss a Sunday, you can catch up either by listening to a podcast or by watching the service online. There's various ways that you can do that. And so would love for you to share things out, the different activities that we're doing, inviting other people to be part of that would be a great thing. As we get started this morning, why don't you stand and we're going to read from Romans 13:1, our call to worship together. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. You came to the world you created, trading your crown for a cross. You willingly died, your innocent life paid the cost. You're counting your status as nothing. The King of all kings came to serve, washing my feet, covering me with your love. If more of you means less of me, take everything. Yes, all of you is all I need. Take everything. You are my life. You are my life and my treasure. The one that I can't live without. Here at your feet, my desires and dreams I lay down. Here at your feet, my desires and dreams I lay down. With more of you, with more of you means less of me. Take everything. Yes, all of you is all I need. Take everything. Oh Lord, change me like only you can. Here with my heart in your hands, Father, I pray, make me more like Jesus. This world is dying to know who you are. You've shown us the way to your heart. So Father, I pray, make me more like Jesus. Oh Lord, change me like only you can. Here with my heart in your hands, Father, I pray, make me more like Jesus. This world is dying to know who you are. You've shown us the way to your heart. So Father, I pray, make me more like Jesus. More like Jesus. More like Jesus, Lord. If more of you less of me. Take everything. Yes, all of you is all I need. Take everything. If more of you means less of me, take everything. Yes, all of you is all I need. Take everything. How great the chasm that lay between us. How high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your very body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on. Then came the morning, that sealed the promise. Your very body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Jesus, yours is the victory. Whoa, hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh God, you are my living hope. Amen. Amen. Go ahead and have a seat. And if there are kids that aren't afraid of me, we're going to gather at the front of the stage in a second. That's good. It's just you guys, huh? Thank you for not being afraid. Have your parents ever said anything to you about certain ways you should behave or certain, yeah? Have they ever said something like characteristics or qualities that you should have? Like, what are some things that you think are really good things to have? Like, that you should, how you should act? What are some ways that we should act? How about honest? Have your parents ever said to be honest? That's a great word, being trustworthy, yup, and honest. Any other words? Fair, how about fair? Is that sometimes when we play with other people, we want to make sure that we do that. Now, we also know what things we shouldn't do, right? We know and how we shouldn't act, right? Like we shouldn't act mean, right? And we shouldn't, what are some other things we shouldn't do? Think of anything? No, yes, no pushing. That's definitely a good one. Adults can do that too sometimes. So today we've been talking about the upside down kingdom, and we don't have kings in our country, but we can know that there are certain qualities, just like our moms and dads want us, and teachers and others want us to have good qualities. We want the people who lead us to have good qualities as well. And so be listening, and remember, at the end of the service, if you come up and tell me one thing that you heard, I will give you a lollipop, okay? Sound good? Thank you, guys. Let's see if you adults can do as well as they do. Qualities that we that make for a good leader. What are the things that we look for when it comes to someone? Loyal, right? Trustworthy is what Ellie said before. Compassionate, honest, fair. What else? Any other things come to mind for people? Good qualities that we would look for in somebody who's leading us? Kind, respectful, joyous, good words. What's that? Authentic. Oh, I love that word. Yep. Good. Now, loving. How about words of what leaders shouldn't be like? We could probably my tendency is to know all about that list, more than the other one. What are some things that come to mind, right? Probably the opposite of everything we said, right? Most of us have a picture in our head of what good qualities are and what bad qualities are. I don't know about you, but my tendency is to populate that bad quality list by the experiences that I've had with certain people, or what I've seen in certain people. That I can populate that list by saying, well, I know what I don't want. I know the qualities that I don't think are helpful. Last week we started a new series called The Upside Down Kingdom, talking about the fact that God ushers in a kingdom that is not of this world. It's different than this world, and it's upside down. It looks different. And while there may be certain qualities and characteristics of leaders that we would look for in this world, God sort of turns that upside down. And in God's kingdom, which has a king, and that kingdom brings hope, the king looks different in an upside down kingdom. The characteristics of that king look very different than that upside down kingdom. And that's what we're going to look at today. What are the qualities in a king? Obviously, we live in a country where we don't have a king, so we'll contextualize this to say, hey, how do we apply this to ourselves? But we'll also see that in Jesus, who is our one true king, all of these things are fulfilled. All the things that God says, hey, these are the characteristics that I want in a king in the upside down kingdom, and here's the king that I have, and here's how he fulfills them. God told Israel, the nation who he had called out from among the other nations, that they would be his nation. But he also was very clear to say that he didn't choose them because he was trying to show favoritism, because there was something special about them. In fact, in Deuteronomy chapter 7, he tells us why. This is what Deuteronomy 7:7 and 8 says. The Lord did not set his affection on you and choose you because you were more numerous than other peoples, for you were the fewest of all people. But it was because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors that he brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the land of slavery, from the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. God did not call Israel out because there was something specific about them. In fact, instead of, again, in an upside down kingdom, instead of being the greatest, they were kind of the least. And that's why God had chosen them and said, hey, you will be my people, and I will carry out the oath that I made on your forefathers through you. God told them that he was their king, and like so often in those broken and sinful human beings have a tendency to resist and to rebel against God, and that's exactly what Israel did. He said, I'm choosing you, calling you out from among the nations. I am your king, and Israel rejected him. And so God allowed for a king to be over them, and in Deuteronomy 17, just a few chapters later, we see the characteristics that God says are important for a king in the upside down kingdom. This is what we read. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you and have taken possession of it and settled in it, and you say, let us set a king over us like all the nations around us. Be sure to appoint over you a king the Lord your God chooses. He must be from among your fellow Israelites. Do not place a foreigner over you, one who is not an Israelite. The king, moreover, must not acquire great numbers of horses for himself or make the people return to Egypt to get more of them. For the Lord has told you, you are not to go back that way again. He must not take many wives or his heart will be led astray. He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. When he takes the throne of his kingdom, he is to write for himself on a scroll a copy of this law taken from that of the Levitical priests. It is to be with him, and he is to read it all the days of his life so that he may learn to revere the Lord his God and follow carefully all the words of this law and these decrees, and not consider himself better than his fellow Israelites, and turn from the law to the right or to the left. Then he and his descendants will reign a long time over his kingdom, Israel. Here's the thing about God. When he calls us to do something, when he says, hey, I want you to do something, he equips us with what we need to accomplish that. And that's exactly what he does. He says, this is what I want, and he gives instructions to the Israelites. These are the qualities, these are the characteristics that you should be looking for in the king. And so we'll see these requirements and then again talk about how Jesus fulfills them. And so first in verse 15, it says, a king that the Lord chooses. How did Israel know who God's choice was? Well, he told them. Well, I don't think many of us have the similar experience that we just sit there and all of a sudden God speaks to us out of the sky. God spoke differently in these times than even he does to us. And so how are we hearing? Well, we have God's word. God has spoken to us in his word. And so if we want to know what God thinks, if we not want to know what God chooses, then we read his word. If we want to know what a king should look like, we read God's word and we understand exactly what God says is important. The passage continues and shows more of the characteristics that God required. He said he should be from among his fellow Israelites. He should be one of them. And he specifically said not to be a foreigner. Well, why is that? Was it because God doesn't like foreigners? No. Again, we have to look at the context in which this was being written. Israel was called out from among all the other nations that were pagan nations, that were pursuing other gods other than the one true God. And so this instruction that God was giving to his people wasn't because he was against foreigners. It was because the foreigners, their hearts were leaning towards other gods. And he knew that if one of them came to be king, then they would bring with them that allegiance to these pagan and foreign gods. For Israel, what would happen if a king was over them too, should they go to war? Have you ever felt like you were in a situation that seemed impossible because you had sort of a dual allegiance? Like maybe two family members were arguing with one another and you were trying to figure out, where do I sit in this whole thing? Or two friends. Well, what would happen if a foreigner were put in place as the king, and then at some point in the future, there was opposition and conflict with that other nation? What would happen to that king? Where would his allegiance be? He'd be torn, he'd be split. He wouldn't know exactly where to be. And even the most upright and principled of us would still struggle with a divided heart. No matter who we were, no matter how much integrity, we would still struggle with that. Something would be pulling us. And God knew this and knew that the best way to avoid it was for the king to be from among Israel, to be an Israelite. The ironic thing in all this, and God's requirement that the king in this upside down kingdom be from Israel, is that that's exactly what Jesus was. Right? In a few months we'll be celebrating Advent and we'll be thinking about the incarnation, Jesus coming to earth and living and dying and rising again. But Jesus came in the flesh, and he didn't come as a foreigner. He came as a Jew. He came as an Israelite. And still, Israel rejected him. God sent his one and only Son. He sent him as one of them. And he was still rejected. We see, too, the line from which Jesus came. In Matthew chapter 1, verses 5 and 6, this is what we read in the genealogy. Some of us have read that genealogy of Jesus and thought, why am I reading about everyone begetting everyone else? Well, here's a little tidbit of that list. Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. There are two names that anytime you evoke them among Jews and Israelites, you will get people's attention: Abraham and David. And if you go up the list, if you start in verse 1, you see Abraham's name, and we see in verse 6 David's name. When you're talking about a king and the epitome of a king, you're pointing to David. People will stop. People will listen. David was called a man after God's own heart. And so Israel revered him. And so if they know that Jesus wasn't just a Jew, but he was a Jew who came through the line of David and through the line of Abraham. So if there's anyone who should have had respect among Israel, it was one who was coming not through just the line of David, but through the line of Abraham as well. And still, he was rejected. And still, even though not only did he have all the characteristics, but he was an Israelite, a Jew, he was rejected by Israel, his own people. Reading on this passage in Deuteronomy, verses 16 and 17, we see more of the characteristics. Not overly wealthy. Why is it important that the king not be overly wealthy? Not have accumulated great numbers of horses, or later on it says a large amount of gold and silver. You know, someone threw out the word authentic before, right? We want people who lead us to that we can relate to. And while they may have been born or raised in sort of obscurity or poverty, if they've risen up, then they have seen and experienced a lot of things. They may have a hard time relating to someone else. I was talking with a friend in recent weeks who's dealing with this very thing with a family member who they all came from the same place, but somehow or another, this family member has become more successful, and he's sort of turning his back on other people. I'm not saying that if you accumulate wealth that you automatically turn your back on other people, but there is a tendency to do that if we aren't careful. And just God required that the king be an Israelite so that he wouldn't have a divided heart. Same thing here. That Jesus spoke those words that where our treasure is, there our heart is also. And so we need to be careful, because the more that we have, the more tendency there could be, the more pull that there could be towards a divided heart, that we could be pulled in that direction. In the same way, in verse 17, he talks about not taking many wives, and this is the same thing, not having a divided heart. The other piece of this, contextually, as we think about who this was written to, Israel, the one nation among all other nations, Israel, the one who is worshiping the one true God, who's surrounded by pagan nations. What generally happened when kings took multiple wives was that they took wives from other nations. Why? So that they could create some kind of allegiance with that nation. You know, now we talk about peace talks, and we talk about, we'll have a peace treaty with anybody. And all you do is sign a paper or acknowledge that. Back then, it was, I'm going to marry you so that our nations can get along. And again, there was a potential for a divided heart. And not only do we see this here, if you don't believe me, you can read through the history of Israel, and you can read about these kings who have taken foreign wives and whose hearts are divided because of that. Not only whose hearts are divided, but whose souls are divided because they begin to pursue the things of other pagan gods as well. God's not saying wealth is bad or wrong here. So don't hear that. But again, there's a potential, there's a temptation for being pulled in that direction if you aren't careful. Now, how did Jesus fulfill this? How did Jesus exemplify this? In Matthew 8, chapter 20, by Jesus' own account, we read what he says. Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Jesus did not have a lot. He was not overly wealthy. If you look through the Gospels, it wasn't Jesus having everybody come over to his house for dinner because he didn't have a place to lay his head. And so Jesus fulfills this, that he was not wealthy. The other piece of it too was that Jesus was single. You know, we know that there's a place for everyone within the kingdom of God, those who are married and those who are single. Some people are called to be married, some people are called to be single, and that's okay. When we're married and then we have children, there is a tendency to be pulled in those other directions. Our wife, our spouse, whoever it may be, our children. But Jesus did not have a divided heart in that way. And he fulfills these requirements of the upside down kingdom. And so, yes, the king should be God's choice, not a foreigner, shouldn't have many wives, shouldn't be overly wealthy. And then the king should follow after the Lord's decrees. And we see this in verses 19 and 20. Follow God's law and be humble. Again, I said before that David was called a man after God's own heart because he followed these as well. In verses 19 and 20, it's to be with him, and he is to read it all the days of his life. These are the decrees that they're talking about, so that he may learn to revere the Lord his God and follow carefully all the words of this law and these decrees, and not consider himself better than his fellow Israelites, and turn from the law to the right or to the left. Then he and his descendants will reign a long time over his kingdom. A king who learns to revere the Lord and follows carefully all of the laws and decrees is one who will not go astray. While many of the decrees and laws, while we may see the king being subject to these things, we need to make sure that the way that we know the one true God is through these laws, through his commands, through these decrees. Again, an irony in this is David's son, Solomon, knew the importance of this. He knew the importance in this enough to have written about it in Proverbs chapter 4, verses 20 through 27. This is what Solomon said. He said, "My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil." Solomon wrote those words, and then he didn't abide by them because he had a divided heart. Because he pursued other foreign wives who pulled him in directions towards foreign gods as well. A king should be focused on the words of the Lord and follow them and realize that they're life to him, and he should consider himself better than his fellow Israelites. Paul knew the importance of this, and he wrote to the early Christians in Rome in Romans chapter 12, verse 3, and he said, "For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you." Be humble and follow the Lord's decrees. And how do we see Jesus do this? Paul's passage, a passage that I find myself going back to over and over again in Philippians chapter 2, specifically in verses 6 through 8. Paul wrote, "Who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." There in verse 8, the humility and the pursuing God's decrees, his laws, his will. Jesus fulfills this. And he is the perfect king for us. And so, what do we do with this? We say, well, we're citizens of the United States. What does this mean for us? Well, first of all, I think it's important for us to realize that a president is not a king and the United States is not Israel. Okay? Despite what we may sometimes try to do and bridge that context, that's something that's just not here. We can try to put it in the passage, but that's not what the passage says. But these characteristics are characteristics that we should look for in any leader, right? It doesn't matter that we don't have a king. It doesn't matter that we are not Israel. What really matters is that God has lifted up characteristics that are important, and we can say these are important not just for a king. They should be important for anybody who has leadership over us. We also need to remember this, and we said this last week, and we'll continue to say this throughout this series. We are people of the kingdom, but we live in the world. For as long as there have been followers of Jesus Christ, this has been the tension and the struggle. We are kingdom people. We are upside down kingdom people. But we live in this world, and trying to make that happen, trying to figure out how that happens, it's messy. And sometimes we don't get it right. Sometimes we mess up. Sometimes we have a divided heart. Sometimes our allegiance is elsewhere. But regardless of our divided heart, regardless of our divided allegiance, we serve a perfect God who never messes up, who's never surprised, never does anything and goes, oh, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. And that God, the one true God that we serve, is sovereign. And there is no leader who will ever come to power without the knowledge of our one true God. He knows what is coming. And nothing will ever surprise him. Nothing is without and beyond his authority and his power. We can't say that as Christians and then pretend that that's not true as we go living our lives. We either believe that God is sovereign, that he's in control and over all things, or we don't. And so remind yourself in these upcoming days that yes, we are people of the kingdom, but we live in this world. But the one true king is a king who is sovereign over all things. He knows and is not surprised. And we trust in him. Let me pray. Father, thank you for giving us characteristics that are important. And Father, may we look for these characteristics in those who lead us. Kings, presidents, senators, governors, whoever it might be. These are valuable things. But Father, when that doesn't happen, when there's a breakdown, would you remind us that you are sovereign? Would you remind us that you are still over all things, that you're still not surprised at what's happening? And so, God, we trust you. We love you. We thank you. Thank you for the one true King, Jesus, who has shown us the way and then made a way for us where there was no way. We come to this table this morning remembering that, trusting in that, and being thankful for that. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Jesus had told his disciples countless times that he had come. He said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. He said, I am the vine, you are the branches. Over and over again, he pointed to himself as the way. He said that he was bringing in a new kingdom, an upside down kingdom, where you sit at a table not with people who deserve it or think they deserve it, but with people who are kind of on the margins of society. There was a reason why people thought Jesus was a drunk, because that's who he hung out with. The table is the great equalizer. None of us come to a table because we deserve it. We come to a table because God has made a way through his son Jesus. And there in that upper room, Jesus, with his disciples, he celebrated this meal, a meal that they had done countless times, celebrating the Passover together. The Israelites knew, it was in their history, in their very DNA, that God had made a way where there was no way before. There was a Passover lamb that had come, but the thing is, every single year they had to sacrifice that lamb over and over again. But when Jesus sat at that table, reclining there with his disciples, he said, guess what? I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, and I am the Passover lamb, and you're not going to need to sacrifice another one after me. I am the perfect sacrifice. When we come to the table of Jesus Christ, we realize that. We don't come because we're worthy. We don't come because we've earned it, just like Israel didn't earn their place. They were chosen because God wanted to make a way for everyone to know and to be saved. And this is why we come to the table. We bring our brokenness, we bring our sin, and we lay it at his feet. We say, Father, I don't deserve this. One of the key aspects of coming to the table is confession. And so we're going to just take a second before we share this meal together. And we will just confess in the quiet of your heart the things, all the reasons why you don't think you should come here. And then remember that all of those things, they don't matter because of Jesus. Because he makes a way where there is no way. And so just take a sec, confessing to the Lord the things that keep us from him and his table. God, your word says if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins, to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. And so we come to this table laying down our sin, laying down our brokenness, laying down the things that keep us from you, and say, Father, forgive us. Take this sin and make me white as snow. And as we take these elements, God, remind us that they are a gift from you. In Jesus' name, amen. Jesus took the bread when he sat with his disciples and he broke it. And he said, this is my body which is broken for you. He took the cup after supper and he poured it out and he said, this cup is the new covenant. The cup of forgiveness shown to you. We come to this table as those who have been chosen by God to receive his grace, his broken body, his shed blood, not because we deserve it, not because we've earned it, but because he's chosen to give it to us by his grace and his grace alone. And so may we come to this table people who are forgiven, people who are saved because of what Jesus has done for us. These are the gifts of God for the people of God. Come to the table. We believe we believe in partnership here at the branch. We partner together with Jesus, knowing that he is the vine, we are the branches. But we also partner together with one another. Community is important. God created us for community. But we partner in the community as well. And we partner with organizations because we're better together. And so we do what we do here in Ashland so that God can make a way where there is no way. We do what we do in Ashland so that we can, as it says in Jeremiah, that we can seek the peace and prosperity of the place where God has planted us. And so we take time during the service to acknowledge that God is the giver of all things and that we give back to him a portion. That doesn't just mean finances, that means our time, it means our talents as well. But we carve out time in the service and we pass a basket, and some of us give online, some of us give in different ways. But we take these moments and we acknowledge that he is the giver of all things and that we are called to give back to him in some way, shape, or form. And so as we sing this last song, as we pass the basket, remember he is the giver of all things. What are we giving back to him? Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaken. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. So I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I build my life faith on Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. The rain came, the wind blew, and my house was built on you. And I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Rain came, the wind blew, and my house was built on you. I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through. Yeah, I'm gonna make it through, 'cause I'm standing strong on you. Yeah, I'm gonna make it through, 'cause my house is built on you. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaken. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. No, he won't. Again, a reminder that it's Family Sunday today, so we'd love for you to join us afterwards. Also, if a few people could hang out and help us clear this middle section, we'll be having tutoring on Tuesday nights, so we need to set up tables here, and actually we can set up a table in the breezeway here as well. So if we set up 3 tables in here and 1 in there, that would be great. And please do join us again for a meal afterwards. We go into this world remembering that we are people of the kingdom living in this world, that God equips us with what we need to accomplish what he asks for. And so may we be people of the kingdom, going with the authority of God the Father, going with the power of God the Holy Spirit, and going in the name of God the Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.